Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuhu masoya shugaba sallallahu alaihi wasallam masu bibiyar wannan channel ta mai albarka wato Halara Media TV barkanmu da sake kasancewa cikin wani sabon shiri na tattaunawa da maulanmu Sayyidi Ibn Shak Ɗahiru Usman Bauchi wato Sayyidi Bashir ko in iya cewa Dr. Bashir. Wannan tattaunawa an yi ta ne cikin harshen Turanci domin ci gaban ɗariƙar Tijjaniya, wato taken topic ɗin kenan ci gaban ɗariƙar Tijjaniya. Fatan almajiran ilimi 'yan uwana masu saurara Turanci daidai gwargwado za su saurara lafiya. Kar ku manta wannan channel na kawo muku shirye-shirye kai tsaye, a ci gaba da like da comment da subscribe domin samun sabon shirye-shiryenmu. Masha Allah.
Good afternoon and welcome to Newsday this afternoon.
Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon.
All right, Doctor, let's begin like this. What is the significance of Ramadan month?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد الفاتح الخاتم وعلى آله حق جمد العظيم. The significance of the month of Ramadan lies in the fact that the month happened to be the month in which the Holy Quran was revealed. In fact, the Holy Book was very specific in underlining the significance of the month and the cause for such significance. It says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم. That the month of Ramadan in which the Holy Quran was revealed as a guidance and veritable signs for mankind, whoever witnessed, whoever is around when the moon is sighted, then he must fast the duration of the month. So he must fast for the duration of the month. So we can see the fact that it happened to be the month that was chosen by the Almighty Allah to reveal His final communication to the world. That is the Holy Quran, as the final message from the Almighty Allah to the final Prophet, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him.
Right, Doctor, the month of Ramadan is gradually coming to an end. Hopefully, tomorrow, the last 10 days of Ramadan will begin. Now, what are the significance of these last 10 days of Ramadan?
Well, for us to understand the meritorious significance of the last 10 days, we need to understand that not the whole month. That is, the communication did not come down here to the Prophet ﷺ during the whole month. It was on a particular night, that is the night of power, Laylatul Qadr. It was the night in which the Holy Book was revealed to the lowest heaven. That is from Al-Arsh to the lowest heaven. And that night happened to be in the last 10 days. That is the significance of the last 10 days of the month. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Itlubu Laylatul Qadr fil Asharil Awakhir." Seek for the night of power in the last 10 days of the month. The Prophet ﷺ, the companion said, "Kana Rasulullah ﷺ Ummuna Aisha said, the Prophet ﷺ, "Iza dakhala al-asharul awakhir yashuddu mi'zara wa yuhyi laylah wa yuqidhu ahlah." Whenever the last 10 days of Ramadan commenced, the Prophet ﷺ used to tight up his belt, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is, he used to be more engaged as never before. Then he will spend the night hours praying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I will wake up the members of his family to pray accordingly. Due to the significance of the last 10 days, because we are in search of the night of power, and the night of power lies, that is, the night of power happened to be within the 10 days of Ramadan, either 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th. That is the odd days of the last 10 days.
This Laylatul Qadr, as you just mentioned, it's called the night of power. Why is it called so?
Well, Qadr, in fact, I don't know, most of the translators are inclined towards interpreting Qadr here as power. Perhaps because of the ramification of the word used here. I mean, it has, otherwise, qadr means predestination. Predestination. Al-qada'u wal-qadr. The Holy Quran called it Laylatul Qadr. Laylatul Qadr. So, the reason why it's called the night of power is that if it is qadr, means predestination. Qadr. That is when there is sukun on dal. Qadr. Laylatul Qadri. So if it is qadr, of course it is qadr, it means capacity. That is the divine power. The divine power to execute his plan. We have al-irada, we have al-qadr, we have al-ilm, we have al-haya. Al-hayatu wal-ilmu wal-irada wal-qadr. That is the four fundamental attributes of any living being. For it to do anything, it must be alive, first and foremost. It must have knowledge of what to do. Thirdly, it must have the will to do it. Then the last one, it must have the power to execute the will. It is one thing to have knowledge of doing something, and it is another to have the will. You may have the will, you don't have the knowledge. You may have the knowledge and you don't have the will. And you may have them both, you don't have the power.
All right, now, Doctor, any recommendations on specific practices or rituals in the last 10 days?
Well, the last 10 days, generally the month of Ramadan, it is recommended that we need to be more devoted to the recitation of the Holy Quran. Of course, that's why we have developed the culture of attending tafsir programs during the month of Ramadan, and because the Holy Book was revealed in that month. So we need to read the Holy Quran over and over again. Then we need to engage in the night prayers, as the Prophet used to do. You should do mizara, wa yuhyi layla, wa yuqizu ahla. He used to spend most of the hours of the night praying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So night prayers, recitation of the Holy Quran, zikr, istighfar, praise for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and so on.
All right, you kept insisting on night prayers and prayers. Now, what is the difference between these last 10 days and the other days of Ramadan?
Well, the last 10 days, people used to increase the number of rak'ahs that they pray during the last 10 days, because the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to spend almost the whole night praying, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Although in his own case, it was never reported that he prayed more than 12 or 13 raka'ats. But Aisha said, don't ask me the lengthy chapters that he used to recite in those prayers, because Ibn Abbas reported, as it was cited in the collection of Al-Bukhari, that once upon a time I visited my aunt, Maimuna, and I spent the night with her. And during the night, the Prophet ﷺ woke up, he went and performed ablution, and he came and started praying. And he said he recited the whole chapter of Baqarah, consisted of 285 verses, then followed by Surah An-Nisa, consisted of 175 verses, then followed by Ali Imran, which comprised about exactly 200 verses. In those days, after Baqarah, it is Nisa, then Ali Imran. It was later, before the demise of the Prophet ﷺ, Angel Gabriel came, as he used to every month of Ramadan. So that's where the arrangement of the chapters was changed. That is, after Baqarah, it is Ali Imran, then Nisa.
Right.
Only in one raka'ah. You can see he recited 1/6 of the Holy Quran in one raka'ah.
Now, how can the Muslims dedicate themselves more often in terms of prayers and worship in this last 10 days?
Well, first and foremost, we need to understand the concept of fasting. Fasting generally means keeping aloof from doing something. That's one should keep off. One should stay off from indulging oneself in certain things, from eating, from having anything to do with women, and so on and so forth. So fundamentally, we need to understand that we are under obligation to keep aloof from backbiting, from speaking bad of certain people, and so on and so forth, staying away from telling lies and so on. Then when it comes to the righteous deeds, as you asked, as I said earlier, more recitation of the Holy Quran. One should read, that is from the copy. One should ponder on the meaning of the verses, that is tadabbur. Then one needs to engage in zikr, in prayers, in istighfar, and in the night. One should engage in prayers of the night, because the Prophet said, "Man sama man qama Ramadana imanan wa ihtisaban ghufira lahu ma taqaddama min dhanbi." Whoever succeeds in fasting the months of Ramadan and then praying, being steadfast in prayers during the night hours of the months of Ramadan, the Almighty Allah will forgive him all the sins you committed in the past.
Right, Sheikh, there is another significant aspect of this last 10 days of Ramadan, which is, of course, the itikaf. Now, can you explain the concept of this?
Well, itikaf literally means to stay in one place, to stay in confinement. When you are confined, when you are isolated, when you go into seclusion, وَلَا تُبَاشِرُهُنَّ وَأَنْتُمْ عَاكِفُونَ فِي الْمَسَاجِدِ, to go into isolation, and it has to be in a Jumu'at mosque, because no isolation can stop you from performing the congregational Jumu'at prayer. So you can't spend 10 days without having a Jumu'at prayer within the 10 days. So that is why it must be observed in a Jumu'at mosque. Then secondly, one has to stay away from anything other than the acts of ibadat. That is practical devotions, prayers, reading the Holy Quran. In fact, one is not even allowed to read books of knowledge during itikaf. For example, you can't open the book of Ahlari, Ishmawi, Izziya, Risala while doing itikaf. No. You are not allowed to read them. You are supposed to engage in practical devotion. Why we believe that knowledge is ibadah, but it is not the kind of ibadah that is being allowed during itikaf.
Right, so
one is not allowed to come out from the mosque except on extreme case of necessity. When one is pushed by situation of necessity, one can go out when there is no one that can do what he would do to himself, for example.
Right, so many restrictions you mentioned out there, but why do a Muslim have to engage in itikaf?
Well, it's a spiritual retreat that is organized by the religion, recommended by the religion, and the Prophet himself used to go into such kind of seclusion so that one can take time to reflect on one's deeds, one can get more and more purified, one can get more and more sanctified, one can get closer to his Creator during those days. That is the wisdom. And of course, the night of prayer will take place during those last 10 days that he's doing itikaf. He may coincide the night of power.
Right, now, how do the Quran and Hadith guide Muslims, especially in terms of their worship and devotion during the month of Ramadan?
Well, the Almighty Allah said in the chapter, as I said, in the chapter of ALBARKA, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات. Then later he said, شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن. O you believers, fasting is made obligatory upon you. In the same manner, it was made obligatory upon those who came before you. But it will only last for a number of days. So the number of days is the one referred to by Shahru Ramadan allazi unzila fihi al-Quran. That means it's a month of devotion. It is the only month throughout the Holy Quran where we are asked to devote ourselves